reaction video from the Asmongold, the literal god. This is an important issue regarding stop killing games. And this is another issue that is near and dear to my heart. And there's a lot to be said, especially if you're American. If you're American, not a panikin, but you're an American. All right, so we're gonna get our eyeballs going on this video camera. Okay, especially if you're American. America. There you go. All right, we kind of got the camera going. Oh yeah, we got it. We're getting we're eyeballing it. We're good at the eyeballing it now, man. Man, I don't need tape when I paint, bro. I can cut in like a laser, like Bob Lazar from Area 51. Yeah, I got probed in 1992, bro. I'll never forget it. Let's just say I'm reminded of it every morning. All right. This is a video from Asmongold reacting to, should video game publishers be able to disable games or be allowed to disable games that you have purchased? And again, and this is not something, there are a few key people that really take on this issue. Stop Killing Games is preeminent among them. But there are other creators like Asmongold and others that will stand up and outline why this is an issue. Okay? And if you stop by, look me in the eyes. If you stop by and you watch this video and whether you enjoy the content, you hate the content, you're lurking, you're hate watching, you want me to talk more about my personal experiences with the opposite sex, you just come in here and we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about everything that you want. You get everything you want. Okay. Do me a favor and slice that like button, bro. Do it.
Slice that like button.
Slice the likes. I get the views. I'm not getting the likes. I need more likes. If you want me to continue to create this content and for it to be appreciated, and for it to swim upstream like spawning salmon in the springtime, to be able to leap over the waterfall that is the YouTube algorithm, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm advertiser friendly. Anyway, I'm so advertiser friendly. Advertiser friendly channel. So, I have made a lot of content on this channel, and it has sparked some interesting conversations, but there's a ton going back all the way. It really began when my channel actually started getting some kind of response and views and what have you, was tackling some of these issues from a consumer perspective in the regards of physical video games, of what your property rights are, what a physical token means in the legal system, right of possession. Again, if you have a physical game, whether the game's on the disc or not, you have a physical token, a physical representation of the money that was spent, and you can present that to a judge or a magistrate or what have you, and state a claim and say, do you see this? That's what a title is. A title is a token of ownership. It's a certificate of ownership presented by a governing body. So I paid this money. I get this government, this third party, the government, looking out for its citizens. A title is a form of government regulation. Well, I just get a title. I buy a car and get a title. Why do you get a title? Why don't you just get a receipt? Why do you get a title? Because a title is government enforcing your right to property. And if you go to court, they're going to say, who is the owner of this property? You have to identify yourself and you have to prove, and you don't want to have to drive the vehicle into the courtroom. So you have a government document that you can present that's official, and it carries the weight of full ownership. You are the title holder, you are the owner, and this is your token presented to you by the government that this is yours. Whoever holds title is the owner, period. And when you have the physical token, you have a receipt, and then you actually have the physical item as a video game. That is a claim of ownership. They are giving you a copy of the game. And the way it used to be is the full game was on the disc, the cartridge, the memory card, whatever it was. It's on the media itself. That means that you have an unlimited license in perpetuity, and you can transfer that license by giving the person the game. That's when PlayStation made that PlayStation 2 era, and they said, oh, if you want to share games, here, I just hand it to this guy. Now it's his game. That's the power of an unlimited license for a physical video game. And what publishers and IP owners have been trying to do for a long, long time is mitigate your ownership over these properties, these games, especially in the digital realm. And I've said this many, many times, whether you agree with it, you don't agree with it, you're like, well, most purchases are digital and it's fine. Yes, but what this video is about to cover is a digital ownership is different than physical ownership. It is fundamentally different. And most people don't understand what the difference is outside of I have a physical game or I don't have a physical game. I pay the same amount of money, which again is a racket, but let's just, that's another topic. But if you don't have a physical token, that diminishes your claim of ownership. It's a lower claim of ownership. So, we just distribute this code and it's our code and the code is copyright registered and trademarked and we just stop the code whenever we want. But if you give somebody a physical disc and they have the system to play it on, they can play that game at any time. They can't come into your house and take the disc. They can't limit your amount of play time. They cannot tell you who can play it and who can't. They can't say, oh, you can't give that to anybody else. You have a tremendous amount of power. There's another fundamental difference. If I have a physical disc of, let's say, a PS2 game, and I want to give that to my friend, who do I have to talk to? What do I have to do? Do I have to ask permission to do that? No. Because I have an unlimited, unfettered license to that piece of property because I have the physical disc and the game is on the disc. Period. It's a closed loop. It's a closed system. I paid my money. I get an unlimited license to use that game, that title, that media in perpetuity, unlimited. If you have a digital game, can I take a digital game and give it to somebody else? Nope. I can't transfer it in any way. So again, your license is now limited and bracketed to your use only, and it cannot be transferred to anybody else unless you engage in piracy. So let's take a listen. This video is not that long, but my monologue sure was.
Should video game publishers be allowed to disable games for you that you bought?
All right, we're gonna wait a minute. I think I lowered the volume for live streaming. I'm gonna raise it up. Hold on 1 minute. I lowered it down for games, but we're gonna want to hear a little bit louder. I think I remember dropping the volume on it. Yeah, I did. We're gonna raise it up. There you go. Okay. We build it while we fly it, baby. It's a one-man show. All right, restart.
Should video game publishers be allowed to disable games for you that you bought? European Parliament hearing. This right here. So we all know Accursed Farms, right? Scott, like this is the guy. This dude has been out trying to push this for Stop Killing Games for literally, when was the first video he did about this? I just want y'all to see where it's at. So where did it go? Longest, I think maybe this is really the first one, is that right here, 2 years ago.
Pardon me.
2 years ago, he invested a lot of time and energy into this. And now 2 years later, over 1 million signatures later,
yep,
here he is in the European fucking Parliament. That's right.
I am the founder of the Stop Killing Games consumer movement, which has many shared goals with the initiative. I'd like to clarify what it means to destroy a video game.
Guy's a hero.
The second slide. When we say a game has been destroyed, what we mean is a publisher has permanently disabled all copies of it that have been sold so no one can ever play them again. It would be like removing every single copy of a book or film in existence, effectively erasing it from the culture. The way this practice works is first a publisher sells a copy of a video game. However, it has been designed so that it must connect to the publisher in order to function.
True.
This acts as a potential kill switch. The customer is also given no information when the game will stop working, even though the publisher has decided to assume that responsibility. Then, after an undisclosed length of time, the publisher disables all existing copies of the game, but keeps the customer's money.
Yep.
There you go. And I'm going to share a personal experience because that's what this channel's all about. Ubisoft. When they started that U Plus like nonsense bullshit, I had purchased a copy of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon on Steam. And when I tried and I played it, I purchased it, I downloaded it, I played it, and I got my enjoyment out of it and went on to other things. It sat in my Steam library. I uninstalled it, and then I went and tried to play it again, and I reinstalled it. And then I wasn't able to access it out of the very portal that I had purchased it from, which again is now you've changed the rules. You sold the rights to a portal, and then you withdrew the rights to that portal, and then you made me go over to Uplay Plus or whatever the F it is that nobody uses, and you're like, well, then you have to come over. It's all it does is it takes me from the portal that I purchased the game on to a Uplay. Now you got to sign up for Uplay. Now you got to buy a plan. So now they put the game that I paid full price for, already played. I own it in my Steam catalog. Supposedly, now it's behind a paywall at Uplay. I have to pay for access to download my game on their portal, and they literally rewrote the terms of use. Unbeknownst to me, again, I didn't get a notification. I didn't get a refund. I didn't get, you're going to need to, fill out this form if you want to play it on Steam or continue to play it on Steam. And again, that is absolute piracy. That is absolute highwayman tactics, okay? It's gangland tactics. Oh, you bought this and you paid for this over here? Well, yeah, I mean, it's over here now, but now you got to pay to get in to see that again. And it's like, I'm like, what? And you know what I wound up doing is I wound up going on eBay and buying a physical copy and playing on the Xbox Series X and have a nice day. Have a nice day. Or I think I may have purchased a copy on the Xbox Series X, but then I also bought a physical copy. There's a triple pack that's actually a really, really cool triple pack on the Xbox 360. I don't know if it's compatible with the Xbox Series X. I would have to look it up. But I bought a digital version of it anyway because it was on sale and it was dirt cheap. So I'm like, okay, it's cheap. I'm just going to buy a digital copy on the Xbox Series X. So I had to repurchase the game at a discount. It was not a lot, but I had to repurchase the game on my gaming system my console to be able to access something I had already purchased. Okay, and that is the kind of thing where you know a company, that's wrong, that's evil. But you see, this is the one time I'm going to agree with the Marxists and the communists. There's a lot of, and the libertarians too. A lot of the libertarians are like, you just need pure capitalism. No. Pure capitalism gets up to bullshit like this. Well, it's our IP, and we're just going to sell it for money and then withdraw it without notifying anybody, and then we're going to put it behind a paywall. Ha ha. Ha ha. Want to play it? Give us a little bit of money. I'm like, that is the most gangster-ass gangland freaking mafioso bullshit. And I'm like, And what this guy is doing is he's fighting for see, you have to go to a government. That's why we need government. Like a lot of people, oh, we got to get rid of the government. No, we don't. No, we don't, because self-interest drives human behavior. And you need to have a third party that represents the people. And yes, they get bought, and yes, people are corrupt, and all this other stuff. But at least there's somewhere to go that you can say, this is gangland BS. People are being cheated. People are paying for something. They're taking government notes, money, buying a product, and then basically denying access to that government's own citizens. Okay, the one good thing that government does, and I'm not a government lover, but the one good thing that I think government does, government doesn't really produce anything. That's what makes it kind of awful, is they don't really make anything. They don't really produce value. They just third party everything. And but the one thing that government does that helps keep society in order is regulate rampant capitalism. So I love capitalism. I love entrepreneurialism. I love creativity. I want to be able to create. I want to be able to do business. I don't want to operate in a high control, high tax environment. But there needs to be a certain amount of regulation in government. Otherwise, people will do anything for a buck, including multi-billion dollar, multi-million dollar corporations will shaft the citizenry if they can make another 5 shekels on, by making them jump through a freaking fire hoop. That is the reality. The reason we have government is to regulate these organizations so they don't do harm to the citizenry. And what Stop Killing Games is doing is showing the harm being done by some video game companies and publishers that are literally stealing the products that you bought and then selling them to you, or just eliminating them altogether just so you can't play them without continuing to give them money. They would rather they don't want to see you enjoy the IP that you paid for with an unlimited license, because it's in a digital format and they can control it and turn the tap off whenever they want. It is absolutely criminal, gangland, mafioso, freaking RICO Act racketeering. It is a racket. It is a bait and switch racket, and he is exposing that. He's a hero.
The publisher also enacts countermeasures to ensure repairing the game. To ensure repairing the game is almost impossible, even for experienced software professionals. From this point.
So they're saying that companies literally spend money on resources, the money you paid them, to prevent you from modding the game so you can have access to what you paid for. So modders can reinstate your license, your legitimate legal license that you paid money. This is the kind of bullshit that creates piracy.
Point onward, no customer can ever run the purchase again.
I believe it was Gabe from Steam that said piracy is a customer service problem. If you give people fair and equitable access to their digital property and merchandise, you don't have to worry about piracy. It's this behavior that creates pirates. because it is the illegal racketeering, the unjustified brinksmanship of these people that walls off property that you've already paid for. Digital license should be unlimited license. Now, there's a debate to be had whether or not it should be a transferable license. Like I said, with a PS2 game, I can just give it to somebody and go, that's yours now. They have an unlimited license because they have the physical game on a disc. It's a physical token. Possession is ownership. Should I be able, and there's a debate about this, like, should I be able to transfer my digital library to somebody? I leave it to them in my will, or I transfer it to a family member or a friend. Am I allowed to do that? And they are fighting that tooth and nail as well. I personally think it should be allowed. I think there should be one-to-one parity between a digital license and a physical license. But the reason the way the courts work is, it's all about the courts and the law, is like, do you have something physically? The law hasn't caught up with the technology to say digital products are property with an unlimited license.
I think that's a really good point, right? Is that it's not enough that they simply stop providing support. They also actively inhibit support.
There you go.
Besides destroying the game, this practice is also subverting customer expectations. Yeah. Most video games can work indefinitely.
That's a really nice way of saying they jack your ass. They take your money and then they remove your product and go, ha ha. And then if you try to use mods to reinstate your legal license to that product that you paid for, they are working feverishly to prevent you from doing that.
Which has been the customer standard for half a century, including ones that connect to the internet. Alternately,
I mean, this goes all the way back to like Magna Carta, basic human rights. It goes back to common law. This is common law stuff. I mean, this is foundational legal precedent. And it just hasn't caught up with the court. Like a really strong case hasn't been heard yet. And everybody's kind of avoiding it and dodging around it. But eventually it's going to come down to, is a digital product that you purchase the same as the physical game and the physical token? That's why they're pushing everybody into digital as fast as they possibly can, because they don't want anybody to establish the legal precedent that you have an unlimited license to a digital product, which means it cannot be removed. It cannot be altered unless you grant permission. You can transfer it. It can be accessed in perpetuity at any time, et cetera, et cetera.
A small number of video games operate as subscription services, but those inform the customer exactly when their access ends at the time of.
But this kind of racketeering, this kind of a bait and switch racket that some of these video game publishers and companies are running is going to create those laws. They're going to create, it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're going to create the regulation that they so fear.
Payment.
If they would just behave and follow Steam. Steam has set a really strong precedent. And Steam is the one ultimately that will establish the template. The template already exists. I've got games in my Steam library that I purchased, 15 years ago that I can download and play right now. The only ones I can't are the ones from Ubisoft.
Referring to do no such thing.
Scumbag.
Yep.
Oh, and if I didn't say it before, die, Ubisoft, die.
It's a bit of miscommunication. They almost always contain terms stating they can end at any time for any reason. What this means is customers have no real protections when they buy games like these.
Exactly.
That's why they like the online element. And that's why you're like, why are they throwing multiplayer in this? Because it's an online element. They will add online modes and online elements to give them the legal authority to shut it down because they don't want to provide service support, but they'll shut down the entire game and not the segment of the game that requires an online connection. Do you get it now? Do you understand the grift and the racket that's going on?
They are unable to keep them, and they are not informed when they will end. This behavior would be outrageous in other industries. If you bought a book in a store, the publisher cannot come into your home and take back your book at once.
It's still Wild West in the video game industries. So, and the reason the Wild West, people are very romantic about the Wild West. But again, if you stole a horse in the Wild West, that was a shooting. We could just shoot and kill you for stealing a horse. And it's frontier justice, and it's very severe, and it functions in a certain type of environment. But do we shoot people for stealing cars now? No. And in fact, if it's a first offense, bro, you're probably going to get probation and some community service, and they're going to let you go, and you're going to go back about your life, and you might not even get a felony charge. So, it's Wild West right now in video games, and they are getting away with absolute murder, and they're running roughshod over consumer rights, property rights, because it's in a digital environment, and they're just like, yeah, there are no rules. So, again, that can be very good for creativity and for doing business, is a very low regulation environment. That's why you always hear about stimulating business requires lower regulation, because it lowers the barriers for entrepreneurs, hustlers, people that drive initiative, and money go-getters, bag chasers. It's if you overregulate, you de-incentivize them from starting to generate money in the economy. So you lower regulations to stimulate that generation of money, because government doesn't create anything. You need those hustlers and those go-getters and those bag chasers to create companies and jobs and develop new products and all these other things. And some of them are quite shady folk, but you need them. You know who invented expiration dates on milk? Al Capone, one of the most notorious gangsters and murderers. But he was a outstanding businessman who did things in his community, and he wound up taking over like some milk business, and people were complaining about the milk being spoiled as soon as it was delivered. So he began a process of stamping the date of when the milk entered the jugs and the bottles, so that people knew how long it had been in there, and it prevented the sale of spoiled milk. That was Al Capone did that. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. And he was operating in a very low regulation environment until the feds like cracked down on his ass. But it's again, that was government coming in and basically regulating an entrepreneur. Basically what it was. So, I mean, this is the exact same idea, but you need some regulation. And if these companies don't stop running roughshod over their own customers, then government's going to come down, and they're going to drop the hammer on you, and it's going to get way harder to operate, and pretty much everybody loses at that point. If some of these companies would just show some personal responsibility, but time and again, companies take it too far. They get too greedy. They're not satisfied with doing solid business and satisfying a customer and growing their business organically versus forcing it down people's throats. That's when you get government regulation, and it is absolutely necessary. I think it's unfortunate that it's necessary. I think that the leadership of these companies should be held more accountable. That's probably not going to happen, but at least there is something in government that you have a third party that can come in and go, bro.
True.
If you bought an insurance policy, you would be informed when that policy ends. Not that the seller could end it at any time for any reason, but still keep your money.
Yep. Exactly.
The games being sold this way are operating similar to scams. Publishers know customers expect video games to last, so they sell these in the same way as ones that can work forever. Yep. As a one-time...
And it's not like you're buying something that expires or wears out, especially if you're buying digitally. It is perpetual as long as you have access. All they're doing is they're developing the game, but all they're selling you really is access. And if you have a physical disc that has the entire game on the disc, you require no access. You can play that. You have an unlimited license. You can play it in perpetuity at any time. Like I have a PS2 game right here, right in front of me. I can slap that into my PS2 at 3 o'clock in the morning, wearing a hot dog costume, and play for 3 hours and do whatever I want. okay? I can do whatever I want with it. It is my unlimited license. I can play it during intercourse. I can play it, on a holiday. I can play it on a Monday, a Tuesday. I can play it at midnight. I can do whatever I wish. I have an unlimited license to that product. I paid my monies. I got my products. I can do what I want with it. Period. Okay. The digital realm is far more limited by the publishers and the IP holders. I mean, it's really honestly night and day. It's brutal, really.
Purchase with no expiry date, then price them the same. Publishers know that if customers were informed exactly when they plan to disable their games, that would reduce sales, since the longevity of a game affects how much customers are willing to pay.
It's actually a very good point, too. That, like, the fact that they're withholding this information is basically correlated to them getting more sales. So it's basically like it's another example of a seller withholding information from a buyer that would give the buyer a more educated understanding about their purchase.
Yep.
It's like it's another form of like just malicious, like bad faith.
And what they don't want to do is they don't want to clearly outline for you. And what they do is they over inundate you with those terms of service and end user license agreements and those contracts that you have to sign. They inundate you with that. Instead of just having one clear statement come up on the screen and go, this is a digital purchase. You do not have an unlimited license. It cannot be transferred. We will withdraw it at any time. They bombard you with this massive amount of information. And I challenge you to actually read the EULAs, the end user license agreements, once in a blue moon. Just take one of the game, accept it, whatever you want to do, but actually read one and go through each section. And they're basically walling you off from any property rights at all in those agreements that you're agreeing to. And they make them so big that nobody wants to drill down. It's again, that is a form of deception where they hide the very basic facts that you don't own this game. You're getting a temporary license, and we'll retract it we'll disable it. We'll restrict your access at any time. You say the wrong thing online, you don't get to play this game that you bought. We've seen that go on already. And it's in these EULAs where they say, if you say something online that we don't like, an opinion, a political opinion or whatever, heat of the moment, you say something online, boom, we'll pull your access at any given time. At any given time. It's a racket,
Behavior.
bro.
It's a very good point. I didn't think of that.
The industry is trying to have it both ways, finding ways to say they're selling you a game that they're not selling you.
Yeah.
This creates confusion for everyone involved, and is part of why it's taking customers so long to get exposure on this practice. The legality is also unsettled. Earlier, members of Parliament assisted us in asking questions to the EU Commission about how legal the terms and game license agreements were, especially being able to terminate them at any time for any reason. The Commission stated Directive 9313 EEC prohibits unfair terms causing a significant imbalance in the parties' rights and obligations to the detriment of consumers. The Commission also recommended consumers file complaints with businesses across member states through the European Consumer Centers Network. In 2024, we had volunteers across the majority of EU countries submitting complaints against the French company.
See, what they've gotten away from, or what they've gotten away with, is absolutely racketeering. So again, we go back to like the PS2. You buy the game. You go to GameStop or wherever you go, you pay your money, you buy your PS2 game. You now own the token, you own the disc, the game is on the disc. You have an unlimited license. Your purchase buys you that unlimited license, almost like you're buying a Blu-ray or a DVD, and you can watch it anytime you want, as often as you want. There's no limits to how often you watch it. You can watch a movie, the same movie, every night if you wish. There's no limit on how often you watch it, where you watch it, etc., etc. They're not worried about what your opinions are online, whether you approve of vaccinations or not, what political party you belong to. It's like, but online, it's all of this limitation on your license. And that's why when I say they're charging you the same money for a physical copy versus a digital copy is an absolute racket, because your level of rights, if you own the physical token, even if the game is not completely on the disc, it's a representation of the IP of the game you bought. So if they try to deny your claim of ownership, you have the physical disc, you have the case, you have the barcode on the case. It can be identified by that. It's like you have something there that you can say, Your Honor, I have the physical ownership of this item, and they are denying me access to the product that I purchased. I demand that they restore my rights and my access to this physical item that I've purchased. Your claim is way stronger there than if you say, I bought it digitally, it was on this, ecosystem, this platform that I purchased it on, and they're just basically denying me access. They can use all kinds of ways and means to bypass your rights to that item that you've purchased a license to. And see, that's kind of where the really the key difference is with the ownership level on digital versus physical games. Physical games is a license in perpetuity. A digital game is access. And that's a far weaker claim than license. Right? It's like owning a title to a house or renting the house. If you're renting a house, you're not the property owner. You have some authority over the property as long as you're paying your rent and you're maintaining the property. You have some authority over it. But if there's anything major that needs to happen, you got to go to the owner. You got to go to the title holder. So, and that is the difference. You are not owning, you're renting on a long-term lease. That is the difference between physical and digital games. If you own a piece of property and you hold the title and it's paid for, you don't owe the bank. Because when you owe the bank's name is the primary, you're the secondary. As soon as you pay it off, the bank's name is removed and you're the primary. And primary means you are the title holder and you have full authority over that property. So when you have a physical game, especially when the game is completely on the disc, you're an owner. If you have a digital game, you're a renter. You're on a long-term lease. And just like people who rent, you can be a good tenant, you can maintain the property, but at any point that title holder can come to you and say, I want to rent to somebody else, your lease is up on this date, please be out within 30 days. And if you don't leave, they'll just have a sheriff eject you. Okay? And when your lease is up, and the thing of it is, when you're renting a property or you're renting an apartment or you're renting a house, you have a lease term. You know what the term is, and you know there's the possibility that it might not be renewed. You don't have that with video games. So if you're buying a video game and you're paying for a long-term lease that they're positioning as owning, which it isn't, they're telling you it's ownership, but in reality, and this is the bait and switch, and this is why it's a racket, they're just putting you on a long-term lease, and then what they're doing is, without notifying you, without giving you any notice or opportunity, without the ability to move it off into some form of media or to preserve your purchase, oh, no, none of that. You're not going to be able to press a disc of this product. No, we're just going to stop your lease on a dime with no notice and no remuneration, and now you just you just don't have you don't have anywhere to live. This is what these people do. You're renting the game. Digital games are long-term leases. A physical game is ownership in perpetuity. This is the distinction. And they are basically withdrawing your access because that's all you're paying for. You're paying for access. You're not paying for license.
Ubisoft for disabling the game The Crew.
Yeah, remember that?
The responses we received from the ECC network were extremely inconsistent. Some officials said there was nothing they could do. Others said the company was required to run the game indefinitely, which is
clear
unrealistic.
regulation.
But the majority
Bureaucrats need laws to operate. Like, is there a regulation? Is this regulated? Is there some law? We know it's an absolute racket, and we know people are being cheated. But can we do anything? I don't know. Let's have a meeting.
Stated there was no clear regulation on this practice.
Nobody knows.
We were independently able to get thousands of complaints submitted to consumer agencies in France and Germany, but there still has been no decision on them on the legality either.
Defiance 2050.
To the best of our knowledge, no one in the EU
not some
has
of the
ever
best
been
games in the
compensated
world
for this and hundreds of other titles.
Never.
In short, governments in EU countries are not sure how to handle this situation, and customers are overwhelmingly not being compensated for the loss of their purchases. It is an ideal
I hope that this is the beginning of
and there's Assassin's Creed. You can't see it on the left-hand side because Asmongold is on top of it. But there it is, Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed. Again, Ubisoft is notorious for this. And Ubisoft is a European company, so he's in the right place. Ubisoft should be sued, blued, and tattooed for what they get up to. Again, I purchased a game on Steam. I paid full price. I downloaded it. I played it. So it's not like it was abandoned. You know, it's not like I bought it and never used it. So I was engaged with the product. I did use the product. And then when I went back to download it again and play it, I was told, well, you're no longer allowed to launch this game out of Steam. You've got to go to Uplay Plus or whatever the F it is, and you got to pay an entry fee, and then you got to download their app, and then you can play it. And I'm like, you basically stole my game. You denied me access to the game, to the platform of the game I purchased it on. You're literally bypassing my access to that game that I've paid for. It's mine. And they basically said, no, it's not yours. It's ours. And you bought a lease, and now we've changed the terms of the lease. And now you got to pay more money if you want you want access to this. And not only that, you have to go over to our platform, or you're unable to play this game that you bought on frickin' Steam. Steam, kick Ubisoft off your platform, dude.
For these malicious online video games,
with this bullshit.
Like these games that basically scam you in like 10 different ways with like
there's
different
another one,
currencies
Ubisoft.
and shit like this. Like I think this needs to be like way more regulated.
Yeah.
Because and this is the reason why I think it needs to be regulated, is because it's being done deliberately to mislead the user. And I think that when you're in a commercial transaction and you do things that are meant to mislead the other party, you are engaging in bad faith behavior, and that's not something that you can do ethically.
It's beyond bad faith. Is it bad faith? Yes, certainly it's bad faith. Bad faith is too weak. This is racketeering. This is RICO Act.
So they're engaging in bad faith, unethical behaviors in order to get more money out of people by, for example, reframing all of the ways that they look at monetization as like crystals or coins or tokens or, like primo gems or something like that. And meanwhile, people don't actually know how much money they're spending. There's no reason for that. It's not even games. This washes over to all digital goods. You're right. And this is the problem, is that because the digital goods marketplace is evolving so fast that the legal marketplace and the legal ramifications of that are not keeping up. Okay. And the result is a bunch of completely unfair, broken.
And this can be very frustrating, but you have to understand that law and legal interpretations are made intentionally slow, especially in the United States, because it's meant to be dragged along by the culture. Yeah, like a lodestone. It's meant to be dragged along. It's meant to be dragged along by the culture. Because what it does is it slows down the legal system so that only the most onerous things get changed and other things are slower to change. It slows things down to keep the society and the business world stable, because when you have too many changes too quickly to laws and regulations, companies can't keep up because companies have their own like lethargy and they have their own inertia, and it just destabilizes everything. So it's designed to be ponderous, but it is frustrating.
Badly designed and consumer unfriendly practices that aren't regulated because the industry is moving so fast.
Situation for clear regulation.
And again, I will say this for the Marxists and socialists out there. There is such a thing as predatory capitalism. I don't think there's one system that's good in its purest form. And within our government, and I'm a very big proponent of capitalism, entrepreneurialism, and small businesses, and getting people off of getting the boot of government off of people's necks and let them live and create and get out of our homes and our bedrooms and our video games and everything else. But there is such a thing as predatory capitalism, and too much of anything, too much water will kill you. Okay. Too much air will kill you. It's like it's too much oxygen will kill you. It's every beneficial thing needs to have some limiting factor. Otherwise, it's too much. And the same thing with capitalism. Capitalism can be predatory and can be as evil as Marxism can be evil. It doesn't kill as many people though. Marxism owns that title. But I am in favor of reasonable, intelligent, measured government regulation. Absolutely. You must have some third party with authority in the marketplace to help regulate and protect the consumer. Bottom line, you got to have it.
This is not a new practice. It started approximately 2005 and began negatively impacting customers from around 2010
online back then.
However, it often affects a minority of customers whose complaints can get lost in the system. It wasn't until a large case affecting millions that any attempts to get government attention were possible, and there still is no answer.
Everybody's been avoiding the hell out of it.
The EU Commission says this must be handled on a case-by-case basis.
Because it drives a lot of money. It's the single most popular. You got to remember the power of video games. People think about the power of Hollywood. Video games eclipses Hollywood. It eclipsed Hollywood 20 years ago. Okay? Video games is the number one form of media on the planet. It generates the most money, and it's an extremely powerful block of organizations. So they will lobby, they will prevent and put the brakes on any regulation to their profitability. And that, unfortunately, is leading to racketeering and consumer abuse.
Future slides. We have formed an amateur study examining over 1,100 video games that require a connection to the publisher. The majority of these have been deliberately disabled by the publisher,
That's right.
with many of the rest still at risk of being destroyed. Under the strictest interpretation of what it means to disable a game, the study found that out of over 400 titles, publishers disable a customer's purchase 93.5% of the time when ending support.
Wow.
This business practice is responsible
and that's why I said, you see multiplayer modes? The reason games put in multiplayer modes that don't make sense is because it increases their ability and autonomy to be able to shut that game down because they don't want to support the servers. So they literally add multiplayer modes they know nobody wants or asks for, because then they can shut down the entire game and not allow you access to it. So you've got to buy next product, and because they can say, well, the game has a multiplayer mode and we don't want to pay for the servers because there's no active players on the multiplayer. So that allows them to not to say, well, we're we're just going to shut down multiplayer and let people play the remainder of the game. No. We're shutting the whole thing down, and then please get excited for next product.
More destruction to the medium than anything else by an enormous margin.
Yeah, I've
There is
called this
also a
out a long
strong
time
correlation between this practice and the size of the publisher, as most small studios do not engage in it, as it requires far more resources, work, and liability than they can handle. So even though this impacts a minority of games, it disproportionately affects customers due to the...
So this is a bait and switch racket. So let me pose a question to the gamers in the world. If a game publisher developer purposely puts in a multiplayer mode to a game that's really a single player game, but we're going to add a multiplayer mode out of nowhere that nobody asked for, nobody's interested in, nobody plays, but then it gives them the ability to shut the game down so that you don't have access to the majority of the game, which is single player or co-op or whatever it is, but it's not dependent upon internet connectivity. But having that single mode in the game allows them to shut down access to the entire game so you can't play it. And now they're going to introduce other products. They're basically going to shut your license down. As I said, if it's a digital game or it's a game with a multiplayer mode that they can claim they do not want to spend the money for the server space to serve a multiplayer mode that nobody plays, okay, they're able to shut your license down. You don't really own a license, you own access. You're renting, they've got you on a lease. You're leasing a digital game. So that what the multiplayer mode allows them to do is to give them and it's not reasonable, but it gives them a reasonable reason to shut down the entire game, deny your access, and shut down your lease on that game because nobody's playing the multiplayer mode. Even though the game is a single player experience or it does not require connectivity to the internet and it's not multiplayer, they can shut down the entire thing because they included a multiplayer mode by design that they know is not going to garner enough activity to support it, and then they can shut down access to the entire thing. Would you consider that a racket?
The scale of the largest offenders. From sales figures, it impacts tens of millions of customers minimum in the EU. This impacts developers as well. This may seem obvious, but based on interviews and feedback, we found the majority of game developers...
That's a massive market, bro. That's a massive market. That's billions of dollars.
Developers do not support having games.
And the games that are being shut down by these publishers is millions, if not billions of dollars of stolen money and leases to games. Because again, unless you have the physical token, you're leasing the game. They're terminating all of these game leases with no notice, no refund, no anything. They're taking your money, they're pulling the rug, and they're laughing in your face.
Games they've worked on destroyed.
Yep.
They can spend years of their lives creating them, but they are often not the ones making these business decisions, and sometimes even sign non-disclosure agreements so they cannot voice their opinion on the matter.
Yep.
The main point I hope that does not get lost in this hearing is this initiative welcomes any solution that will solve the problem of video games being destroyed on this scale. We want this to be as easy and as practical as possible for all parties involved, and are very open to how that is achieved. We are not even asking publishers to change their business or monetization models, only that once they end support, they do so in a responsible way.
I think that if you're not providing an alternative yourself, then somebody should be able to do it for you. That's my outlook on it.
Right to mod.
If you're not
right to mod, right to repair, right to mod, right to host, right to host the game. Have we seen publishers shutting down independent people or hosting games? Yep. Right to host, right to repair, right to mod. If you have purchased this game, Digital. I don't think digital will ever have the same level of ownership that a physical game will. But there definitely needs to be serious reforms on what a publisher can and cannot do to the property that you've purchased, because they're presenting it like it's a license, but what it really is a lease. And they need to get closer to licensure versus a lease agreement with zero recourse of the person who is the leaseholder. They're just yanking leases and just saying hardy har har.
Not doing it yourself and then the game gets shut down, somebody else wants to make a private server, you shouldn't be able to shut down the private server.
Yep.
Like that's literally it. Yep. Like, I don't think that you need to require them to run the servers. You don't have to make them give up the code.
Right to host,
if somebody
right to
wants
repair.
to recreate the game and do that, then I think that it's totally fine.
Right to mod.
Like City of Heroes, yeah, one of many, or WildStar.
Our only goal is to prohibit this destructive practice and thus obtain basic protections for consumers and the medium as a whole.
Yep.
I'd like to add a little bit on the economic aspect. Again, when planned for from the beginning, the cost can be very small. It's mostly about when it's undoing that's more of a cost related.
Yeah.
Earlier the game Concord was mentioned. That's actually an
That's when he raised his eyebrows. He read Concord.
20 people want to play that.
Earlier the game Concord.
But you know what? Here's the thing about Concord. I own a copy of Concord. But it's mainly for the lols. But it's like, look, man, anybody who was interested in Concord, that game is now dead. Anybody that was interested and paid money for High Guard, that game is now dead. How many people, even though these games are complete and total trash, how many of those people who paid their money can no longer play it? I mean, it's like, even if you're one guy running around in a server by yourself in Concord. All I'm saying is that like Concord and High Guard sold quite a few copies. Okay? And they didn't sell like nearly enough, but I mean they sold copies to and I know in High Guard they sold 100,000 units or whatever like that, and a lot of people quickly got their refunds, but there's a lot of people that just got stiffed, and that game is no longer exists. It's nowhere. And the publisher just pulled it. What now? I just paid my money. It's just like, bro, it's like, it's a racket. It's a racket. It's like you go and buy you go and buy a car, you go and buy yourself a Ford Escort, and you're driving around, you're sitting at a light, and somebody yanks you out of your Ford Escort and they confiscate your car. Yeah, we're not making this car anymore. We're not going to support the servers for this car.
Was mentioned. That's actually an excellent example because it's publicly stated that at least 370 million euros were spent developing that game, and it did not include an end-of-life plan like what we're seeking. Most of the cost for developing games tends to come from...
Well, he said 370 euros. That's not that doesn't convert one-to-one to American dollars. 370 euros is probably more like $450 million. $450 million pissed down the rat hole for Concord.
Other areas like art assets or marketing. This is just one element out of hundreds that already go into making a game. The other thing is sometimes industry costs or estimates of how much this would cost can be faulty because they're expecting the game they're asking for to have every last feature it did while it was being supported. And many of those can be retired and don't even make sense for a game that's no longer being supported, like administration or anti-cheat measures or account management or things like that. So that can drastically, there can be hundreds known as microservices associated with these that can be disabled.
Gamers will win.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a matter of if gamers will win. It's a matter of when gamers will win. It's inevitable. Because there are more of us every single day. That's
this is when I say, like, because gaming is the most dominant media on the planet, period, it eclipses all other forms of entertainment and media. Gaming is the big one. Gaming is the one. Gamers have a huge amount of political and commercial power as a customer. That's why I say your time, attention, and money are your most powerful assets in this world. And if gamers choose to take their time, money, and attention elsewhere, the earth moves. The earth moves, bro. It's so I'm proud to be a member of that of a block that is so beloved and powerful. And that's where he's saying, like, gamers will win because we dominate the marketplace. We dominate the marketplace. If we turn our back or if we insist on regulation, it will happen. Gamers are bigger than the boomers at this point. Period. Thank God.
Year there are more gamers.
Customer still has the core game. So that should be taken into account when figuring out the potential cost. And it might have been mentioned earlier, but we also want to emphasize the companies have been paid already once for the working game. So that should be factored into the budgeting. There were some other points mentioned on the right to repair, whether we need it and how long a product should work.
The right to host, the right to mod, the right to repair.
With right to repair,
we are taking
that's a little bit
those
different
rights.
issue. Well, that's certainly welcome, having the right to that. As I mentioned in my presentation, there are deliberate countermeasures to prevent repair. That it's almost a small miracle when it does happen from extremely experienced software professionals for resurrecting a game. However, if there were repair instructions, that would be very welcome. I think we would even consider that a viable alternative to what we're asking if it was practical to resurrect the game that way.
Yep. Again, piracy is a customer service problem.
Yeah, of course.
And for how long it should work, it's kind of again, the customer standard is indefinitely, as long as they keep the game in good working order on their end. And we're not trying to hold any publishers responsible for updates that break things that wasn't their doing. So how long they choose to support it, we're completely open to. I mean, I think there's already existing EU regulations on that, but I mean, as far as we're concerned, they could end support.
Does this theoretically mean that Concord would have to stay open for like 5 years? It's like, imagine your game dies in a month, your game is never alive. Your game dies in a week, and then like you have 5 more years of paying for the servers.
The next day, but as long as the game isn't destroyed, we would be.
That's the thing with the servers and the cost of the servers. Again, if you're coming out with these multiplayer titles and they flop, there's no reason for you to maintain the servers. The funny thing is I think that is if the servers were left open for a certain period, you might even get a groundswell movement of people that, if you gave them a right to mod, a right to host, that would keep it alive, mod the game, and might revitalize the game. And then those people that have the right to mod, the right to host, would require that you purchase a copy to participate. See, there's a resource here. There's like an organic resource in the modder or hosting communities that could host multiple of these dead games, these dead multiplayer games, charge you an access fee, and pay the license holder. There are ways to make money at this and to serve the customer. The perfect solution does exist. Oh, okay, look at it. I just stumbled on that. Think about that. Let's say an entrepreneur starts a company and all they do is host dead games. So your Concords, your High Guards, and your Unreal tournaments and Quake 3 and all the rest of it. And you had to pay a monthly fee and he would pay a portion of that monthly fee, and you could play all of them. See, that's the thing. You would get access to this dead game book of games and just like go in and have fun with it. And maybe people would discover a love for those games and decide, okay, you have to buy a digital copy of these games. And maybe that digital copy, because the game is dead, is offered to you by the publisher for $5, $10. If all of a sudden, let's say Concord was on this server, and let's call it like dead, like graveyard of games. There's a graveyard, another GOG, graveyard of games, and you went there, you paid your monthly subscription fee of $10 or whatever it was, and then you had access to all of these online dead games that were given server space, right? So you're paying in for the server space, but each game, maybe you get like 1 a month or you get 3 a month. But if you wanted to add one in, or again, you could build a fee structure so that people could have access to these games. Yes, are they going to pay a fee? But at least there's some money churning. People might be interested in it. It might cause a groundswell. You'd be surprised. Some weird shit like takes off when you give people access to it. You might actually get like a Concord revival group that would just go in there and play Concord and make it into like a freaking goof, and just use that to create content on Twitch or YouTube. Again, like to do this kind of stuff, to just shut the shit down and deny the right to host, the right to mod, and the right to share even. That's you're shooting yourself in the foot, bro. Especially for these games that all this money poured into and there's absolutely no interest in right now.
I find that acceptable. And the last point on the for doing this through the existing, just doing this through the courts, through the legal action. Yeah. That still doesn't get to the heart of the matter of the game itself being destroyed. We're not really refunds and compensation. Those are a secondary measure that when the game itself can't be reinstated. We just want the game preserved. So doing it through the existing framework doesn't quite get us there necessarily.
It's kind of crazy for us to imagine the fact that Concord and Highguard are now into the void. We can't play them ever again. They're gone.
Yep.
That world that we used to live in has moved on beyond us. And now we're living in a different universe beyond Concord.
Thank God.
Beyond Highguard. And that's it. And not missed? Oh, I agree. But I think that you should be able to go back. Like, wouldn't it be a good thing if in gaming schools you were able to play Concord the same as you can play like E.T. on Atari?
Like, this is why it didn't work. This is what didn't work.
That's why it was bad. I get it. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Like, we need to have that listed out there so everybody knows what the hell they're doing wrong. It's a cautionary tale. Exactly. So that's what I think they need to do. But, like, again, I'm a big advocate of this. I've supported Ross through this entire thing. I completely support this as well. I linked you guys the video. Give it a like. Give it a sub. I want to see more of this happen. I do. And, again, the Stop Killing Games movement is something that I've agreed with for a very, very long time. So, that's really how I think it. Can't sweep the skeletons into the closet? I know. Bro, you're teasing Contard creators with more players after the game's been dead for months? Well, look, man, it would be funny if people were able to do that. Not acceptable to make the cost for that fall on the company. Well, the reality is that when you spend money on something, you should expect to get what you paid for. Yep. And the problem that a lot of these studios have is that they don't actually deliver that. That's the main issue. Is
they
that
don't feel like
they're not delivering the thing that they said they were going to deliver. And if the game shuts down very soon after, you're not really getting your money's worth, are you? And so, don't sell it then? Exactly, yes. And the entire idea, this is another component, is that we know that these video games are designed, like, they don't have to make the games this way. They make the games this way on purpose so they can control more aspects of the way that you play them than what they should.
Yep.
And so what I think the problem is that they have a monopoly legally through that control. If they didn't have that control, you wouldn't have this problem. The problem is derived from the control. It's like car manufacturers straight up producing no replacement parts and blocking third-party production of parts. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, like a car manufacturer should not have to make replacement parts forever. But at the same time, we could make a law. We could just do this. We could just simply write a law and say, you have to provide replacement parts and produce them at this ratio for at least 5 years. And what do you think? Every car manufacturer is going to go out of business? You think they're going to stop selling cars in Europe and America? No, they're going to work around it and they're going to follow the fucking rule. So this entire idea that like, oh, well, they can't do this. Of course they can absolutely do this. And you'll see it immediately. So again, we live in democratic societies. Like if we're in America, a Western country, we can just simply tell them what to do.
They're republic societies, and a lot of people throw around democracy. America is not a democracy. Russia is not a democracy. China is not a democracy. Most of the countries in Europe are not democracies. Many of them are monarchies with a parliamentary bureaucracy. So there's almost no pure democratic countries, because democracy is rule of the mob. And democracies suck. So be careful what you wish for. What he's saying is we have a representative republic in the United States with a constitution. Because
we can just change
just
the
to be
rules.
clear.
We can just say there's a rule that says, like, theoretically, we could take it and make it to where gotcha games were no longer allowed to have energy in those games. We could say that any form of acquisition and recovery of items or, rewards in the game can't be limited to a certain amount of times per day. We could just do that. We could get
the really sad, basically, I don't want to take away from what he's saying, but what I would say is that video game publishers are not going to self-regulate until they're made to regulate by the government. That is the unfortunate reason we have governments and we have regulatory bodies, is because companies will continue predatory type practices, brinksmanship, racketeering, bait and switch tactics, as long as they're allowed to under the law. As soon as the law steps in, and this flows back into his point that we can just have our state representatives create laws that protect the consumer. That's not like everybody voting on the fact of what those regulations are. We basically hire proxies with our vote to enact laws and regulations for us. And until the governments decide to do that, and until the behavior of the video game companies becomes so onerous that the government has to step in, and again, we shouldn't be wishing for regulation, because it's unfortunate, because it is runaway capitalism. It is like the negative side of capitalism, that these companies will not regulate, and I'd be careful be using the form of monopoly, but what I would say it's a form of bait and switch to provide a product, and then to sell something as a unlimited license, but then behave like it's a lease with no term. It's just like anytime we decide the term's over, it's over.
Get enough people together and we could just do that. We can do anything that we want. Understand that. All you need to do is get enough people together.
Yep.
That's all you need to do, and it's literally that easy.
Okay. So there you go. So we're going to let him have the last word on that one. But that was a very interesting look at an effort to regulate the video game industry and the absolute racket that they are running with digital games and leases versus licenses. And again, physical game, you have a physical token, you have a physical license. A digital game, you're just renting it, you're leasing it for an undisclosed term period. Buyer beware. LVO Toro, Fancy Action Now, and that's mission completed.
Mission complete.